Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Young and the Restless channel. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and hit like for more daily drama updates and spoilers. Your support truly means a lot and helps our channel grow every day. Now, let's jump straight into today's exciting update. It all begins in the shadow of a heartbreaking crisis, as Victor Newman stands alone in a hospital corridor, pacing endlessly beneath harsh fluorescent lights, waiting for any word about the woman he has loved for so many years. Despite everything they have shared together, Victor and Nikki Newman remain painfully estranged, separated by wounds that have been building for far longer than either of them wants to admit. Yet everything changed the moment Victor learned that Nikki was facing a terrifying medical emergency, a dangerous mass on her brain that threatened to steal her eyesight forever. The possibility of losing her in such a devastating way has shaken him to his core, and for perhaps the first time in a long while, genuine guilt has begun to consume him. Every regret, every harsh decision, every selfish choice now weighs heavily on his conscience as he watches the woman he still loves fight one of the greatest battles of her life. It is a painful reminder that no amount of power, wealth, or influence can erase the mistakes of the past when the person you love is lying in a hospital bed. To Victor's credit, he has wasted no time trying to do everything within his power to help Nikki survive this nightmare, calling in every favor and using every resource at his disposal. He located one of the finest surgeons available and immediately flew her in aboard his private jet, refusing to let a single minute be wasted while Nikki's vision hung in the balance. It was an extraordinary gesture, one born not from business strategy or revenge, but from desperation and genuine concern. Since then, Victor has remained almost constantly at the hospital, refusing to leave even after the rest of the Newman family finally returned home to get some desperately needed rest. He has stood watch through long nights filled with uncertainty, silently hoping that somehow his presence might make a difference. Nikki will undoubtedly recognize everything he has done for her during this terrifying ordeal, and she will surely appreciate his unwavering devotion in her darkest hour. But gratitude and forgiveness are not the same thing. And Victor is about to discover that saving Nikki's eyesight is far easier than repairing the damage he has inflicted upon their marriage. The emotional wounds between them have never truly healed, and Nikki has made that painfully clear from the very beginning. In fact, one of the biggest reasons she tried so hard to keep her illness hidden from Victor was because she never wanted him to return to her simply out of pity. She refused to let tragedy become the reason for a reconciliation that should have been built on love, respect, and genuine change. Even now, as Victor sits outside her hospital room filled with regret, Nikki may still question whether his renewed devotion is driven by authentic transformation or simply by fear of losing her forever. Before she ever considers slipping those wedding rings back onto her finger, the very rings she once returned to him, Victor will have to prove that this isn't just another emotional reaction to a crisis. He will have to show Nikki that he is capable of becoming a different man, one willing to confront the flaws that have repeatedly torn their relationship apart. And that means making changes far bigger than expensive gifts or grand romantic gestures. Perhaps the first and most obvious change Victor needs to make involves a man whose very presence has become another painful symbol of his misplaced priorities. Matt Clark continues living on the Newman Ranch, and Victor insists on keeping him there because he wants to monitor him closely, believing he can prevent Matt from slipping back into his dangerous criminal past. Victor argues that Matt could once again become a threat to Nick Newman, Sharon Newman, Noah Newman, and countless others if left unsupervised. There is certainly logic behind keeping an eye on someone with Matt's dark history, but that reasoning has come at an enormous personal cost. Nikki repeatedly begged Victor not to allow Matt to remain on the family property, warning him that it was a terrible decision, but Victor dismissed every concern she raised. Worse still, Nikki recently confessed how deeply it hurt when Victor threw her out of the very home he built for her, while Matt, a convicted criminal, was welcomed with open arms. That painful contrast says everything about why Nikki feels so deeply betrayed. Because while she was cast aside, Matt was given a place to belong. The situation becomes even more frustrating once Victor's true motivation comes into focus. Matt isn't staying on the ranch out of compassion or rehabilitation. He is simply another piece on Victor's endless chessboard. Victor intends to use him as a spy against Kane Ashby, turning yet another human relationship into another calculated move in one of his never-ending vendettas. Revenge has become such a defining part of Victor's life that it now bleeds into nearly every decision he makes. And Nikki has spent years watching those obsessions slowly poison their marriage. Even if Matt currently appears harmless, almost no one else wants him living on the Newman property, especially Nikki. Every day he remains there serves as another reminder that Victor continues choosing strategy over family and manipulation over trust. If Victor truly wants Nikki to believe he is changing, then Matt Clark needs to leave the ranch immediately, because no reconciliation can begin while old mistakes continue living under the same roof. Another enormous obstacle standing between Victor and Nikki is Victor's relentless need to control the lives of his children. Time and again, he has crossed boundaries, manipulating situations behind the scenes because he believes only he knows what is best for the Newman family. His latest scheme may have been one of his cruelest yet. Victor secretly conspired with Audra Charles, paying her to seduce Kyle Abbott for the sole purpose of destroying Kyle's relationship with Claire Grace Newman. It wasn't simply business or family protection. It was an intentional effort to break Claire's heart for Victor's own agenda. Nikki initially struggled to believe Victor could sink so low, desperately searching for another explanation, because accepting the truth meant confronting yet another painful disappointment. Eventually, however, the evidence became impossible to ignore, and she had no choice but to acknowledge exactly what Victor had done. Although Claire ultimately forgave her grandfather far more quickly than many thought she should have, the damage to Victor's reputation within his own family was impossible to erase. Nor was this an isolated incident. Victor has repeatedly targeted Billy Abbott, despite Billy being the father of Victoria Newman's children, and therefore permanently connected to the Newman family. Rather than allowing his adult children to make their own choices and live their own lives, Victor continuously interferes, manipulating relationships and orchestrating outcomes from behind the scenes. Nikki has witnessed these patterns for years, watching every scheme create new fractures within their family, instead of bringing anyone closer together. She knows that Victor's constant need for control has caused pain not only for strangers, but for his own children and grandchildren as well. If Victor truly hopes to become someone Nikki can trust again, he must finally accept that love does not require control. Sometimes the greatest act of love is stepping aside and allowing your family to find their own paths without constantly pulling invisible strings. Even more troubling is another aspect of Victor's past that continues casting an enormous shadow over any hope of reconciliation. His willingness to cross moral and legal lines whenever it serves his purposes. Nikki cannot ignore the disturbing history of crimes and manipulation that Victor has accumulated over the years. One of the darkest chapters involved Victor kidnapping Jack Abbott, delivering him into the hands of the unstable Kelly, and replacing him with Marco Annicelli, who then deceived Phyllis Summers into believing he was her husband. For months, Phyllis unknowingly lived beside an imposter, enduring a horrifying betrayal orchestrated by Victor himself. In another shocking incident from years ago, Victor arranged for Billy to be drugged and sexually assaulted, a traumatic event that resulted in an unexpected pregnancy. More recently, Victor once again crossed an unforgivable line by paying Patty Williams to kidnap Jack and sexually assault him aboard a yacht. As if that were not enough, Patty continues stalking Jack, refusing to disappear from his life and keeping that nightmare painfully alive. Victor's questionable actions have extended beyond personal vendettas into the corporate world as well. He resorted to illegal artificial intelligence to infiltrate Kane's company, Arabesque, believing technology could become yet another weapon in his endless pursuit of victory. Ironically, karma struck back in spectacular fashion when Phyllis ultimately used that same AI technology to steal Newman Enterprises away from him. It was a rare moment where Victor experienced firsthand the consequences of the dangerous tactics he had embraced. Nikki has watched these cycles repeat themselves over and over, and each new scheme has only reinforced the same painful truth. The man she loves keeps choosing manipulation over integrity, vengeance over peace, and power over compassion. If Victor genuinely wants Nikki to see him differently, then perhaps the greatest transformation of all would simply be learning how to live like an ordinary man, instead of constantly behaving as though he is trapped inside some grand tragedy fueled by revenge. Another meaningful gesture Victor could make would involve letting go of the empire that has dominated so much of their lives. For decades, Newman Enterprises has been both the source of Victor's greatest triumphs and the cause of countless battles that have divided the entire family. Nikki has already been deeply hurt by Victor's decision to give Chancellor away, leaving her questioning where his priorities truly lie. Perhaps the answer is for Victor to finally entrust Newman Enterprises to the next generation, allowing Nick, Victoria, and Adam Newman to lead the company together while he steps away from the endless corporate wars. Such a decision would not represent weakness, but wisdom, acknowledging that there comes a time when family matters more than business. Free from the constant pressure of protecting the company, Victor and Nikki could finally enjoy the retirement they have long deserved. Instead of spending every day fighting enemies, defending stock prices, or plotting against rivals, they could devote themselves to each other and to the family they spent a lifetime building. Yet, even if Victor accomplishes every one of those extraordinary changes, there remains one obstacle greater than all the others combined. Looming over every conversation about reconciliation is one name that has haunted Victor and Nikki's marriage for years: Jack Abbott. When Nikki cautiously raised the possibility of rebuilding their relationship, Victor immediately responded with one impossible condition. He told her that reconciliation could happen only if she completely removed Jack from her life forever. But Victor fails to understand something that Nikki has tried to explain countless times. Jack is not simply an old rival or inconvenient acquaintance. He is Nikki's closest friend, someone who has stood beside her through some of the darkest chapters of her life, offering unwavering support whenever she desperately needed it. Victor's obsession with Jack continues to burn because of one unforgettable night at the Genoa City Athletic Club. Jack nearly lost his life after taking pills in a desperate attempt to shock Nikki into entering rehab. But Victor has never been able to let go of what he believes happened afterward. According to Eric Braden, Victor remains convinced that Jack and Nikki slept together that night during what he imagines was a night of reckless debauchery. The truth is that nothing of the sort ever happened, yet Victor refuses to accept it. His suspicions have become another excuse to fuel a rivalry that should have ended years ago. Jack, for his part, has shown little interest in continuing the feud. But after everything Victor has done, including bringing Patty back into their lives, it is hardly surprising that Jack now despises him. Patty has already kidnapped Jack once, and now she has turned her terrifying attention toward Diane Jenkins, abducting her while continuing her disturbing obsession with Jack himself. If Victor truly wishes to make the ultimate gesture that convinces Nikki to give their marriage another chance, then it cannot come in the form of an extravagant diamond necklace or another expensive ring. Material gifts have never been the answer to the problems between them. Instead, Victor must confront the one battle that has poisoned his heart for decades. He needs to stop Patty once and for all, rescue Diane, protect Jack, and drive Patty out of town, with a warning never to return. After that, Victor must do something even more extraordinary. He must walk up to Jack, sincerely thank him for saving Nikki's life that terrible night, extend his hand in peace, and declare that the war between them is finally over. No hidden agendas, no manipulations, no revenge waiting around the corner. Just an honest desire to bury the hatchet forever.
Only then would Mickey truly witness the kind of transformation she has been longing to see for so many years. More than wealth, more than power, and more than dramatic displays of affection, what Nikki wants is proof that Victor has finally learned the value of forgiveness. She wants to see a man capable of releasing decades of bitterness in favor of peace, compassion, and genuine love. Ending his endless war with Jack would demonstrate that Victor is finally choosing his marriage over his pride, his family over his vendettas, and his future over the ghosts of the past. It would be the one act powerful enough to convince Nikki that this reconciliation is built on real change instead of temporary guilt. In the end, the future of one of Genoa City's most iconic love stories may not depend on grand romance at all. It may simply depend on whether Victor Newman can finally let Jack Abbott go and become the man Nikki has always believed he was capable of being. There is another layer to this unfolding story that makes Victor's journey toward redemption even more compelling. Throughout the years, every time Victor and Nikki managed to rebuild what had been broken between them, the same destructive habits eventually resurfaced. They would find their way back into each other's arms, convinced that love alone could conquer every obstacle, only for another vendetta, another manipulation, or another power play to drive them apart once again. Their relationship has survived betrayals, scandals, family wars, and impossible circumstances that would have destroyed countless other marriages. Yet survival has never been the same as healing. This time, with Nikki's life forever changed by her frightening medical ordeal, the stakes feel dramatically different. The possibility of losing her eyesight has forced everyone around her to reconsider what truly matters. And for Victor, that realization may finally become the wake-up call he has desperately needed. As Victor waits outside Nikki's hospital room, every passing minute becomes an opportunity for reflection. There are no boardroom negotiations to distract him, no hostile takeovers demanding his attention, and no rivals to outmaneuver. For perhaps the first time in years, he is left alone, with nothing but his own thoughts and the painful consequences of the decisions that brought him here. The silence surrounding him is almost deafening, filled with memories of every argument, every harsh word, and every moment when Nikki pleaded with him to choose their family over another endless battle. Those memories refuse to disappear. Instead, they replay over and over in his mind, forcing Victor to confront a truth that he has spent years trying to ignore. Winning every fight has ultimately cost him the one relationship he values above all else. Nikki, meanwhile, faces an emotional crossroads of her own. She knows Victor better than almost anyone in the world, and that knowledge makes forgiveness incredibly complicated. She has seen him perform breathtaking acts of love before. She has watched him move mountains to protect the people he cares about, spare no expense when someone's life was in danger, and display extraordinary devotion during moments of crisis. But she has also watched those beautiful moments fade away as Victor inevitably returned to old habits, allowing his pride and obsession with revenge to overshadow everything else. That history makes it difficult for Nikki to believe that this time will truly be different. She wants to believe in the man she fell in love with, yet experience has taught her to be cautious whenever Victor promises that he has changed. That is precisely why actions will matter infinitely more than words in the days ahead. Victor can apologize 1,000 times, but apologies alone cannot erase decades of pain. He can shower Nikki with expensive gifts, surround her with luxury, and promise her the world all over again. But none of those gestures address the deeper issues that drove them apart in the first place. Nikki is no longer looking for grand declarations of love. She is looking for consistency. She wants to see Victor make difficult choices when no one is forcing him to do so. She wants to witness him walking away from revenge even when vengeance would be easier, choosing peace even when conflict feels more satisfying, and putting family above pride without expecting praise in return. Every challenge facing Victor is connected by one common thread. Whether it involves Matt Clark, his constant interference in his children's lives, his questionable criminal behavior, the future of Newman Enterprises, or his endless rivalry with Jack Abbott, each problem ultimately comes back to Victor's overwhelming need to control everything around him. That need has shaped nearly every major decision he has made over the years. He believes he can solve every crisis, manipulate every outcome, and protect everyone he loves through sheer force of will. But in doing so, he often forgets that the people closest to him are not pieces on a chessboard. They are individuals with their own hearts, their own choices, and their own right to live without constantly being caught in the crossfire of his personal wars. Perhaps the greatest irony is that Victor has always justified these actions by claiming he is protecting his family. In his mind, every ruthless business move, every secret plan, and every calculated act of manipulation has been motivated by love. He convinces himself that he alone possesses the strength necessary to shield the Newman family from danger. Yet Nikki sees the heartbreaking reality that Victor refuses to acknowledge. More often than not, the greatest threat to the family's peace has not come from outside enemies. It has come from Victor's inability to let go. His determination to defeat every opponent has repeatedly created new enemies where none needed to exist, pulling his loved ones into conflicts they never asked to fight. Jack Abbott represents the clearest example of this endless cycle. For years, the rivalry between Victor and Jack has defined so much of life in Genoa City that it almost feels impossible to imagine one without the other. Their hatred has survived changing circumstances, shifting alliances, and countless opportunities for reconciliation. Every time it appears the feud might finally be over, another misunderstanding, another act of revenge, or another old grudge reignites the conflict. Nikki has stood in the middle of that battlefield for decades, watching two stubborn men refuse to leave the past behind. She understands that Jack is not perfect, but she also knows he has repeatedly shown kindness toward her when she needed it most. Asking her to erase that friendship simply because Victor cannot move on places an impossible burden on her shoulders. What makes this particular chapter so fascinating is that Victor now possesses a rare opportunity to rewrite his own legacy. Instead of being remembered solely as the ruthless patriarch who always chose victory over compassion, he could become the man who finally recognized that true strength lies in forgiveness. Imagine the impact such a decision would have across the entire Newman family. Nick, Victoria, Adam, Claire, and everyone else who has spent years watching Victor wage war against the world would suddenly witness a completely different side of him. It would send a powerful message that even the strongest personalities are capable of growth. More importantly, it would show Nikki that the man standing before her is no longer trapped by the mistakes of his past.